Ebisu content. We're back at Ebisu. I've picked up the Chaser, and before we jump into driving, we've got a couple of maintenance items to do. I will admit I've now done 2 Matsuris without even doing an oil change because the whole drivetrain got freshly serviced right before I bought the car. But now it's time to give it some love. So we're going to be starting off with an oil change and jump into a few other things after that. With the oil change done, it's time to move on to the next goal. For this trip, I really want to tidy up the look of the car. If you've seen my previous Ebisu content, you would have seen on my first trip here, I actually ended up nosing the front of the car into the wall on the Nishi bank. And then I come back in April and the goal was just to get the car back together, running and driving, which I did exactly that. But now the car is left looking a little tattered and a little ugly. So I've ordered a few things and bought a few secondhand parts to get it looking a little more presentable. Front end looks a million times better with a headlight and a bar. It took me forever to make a little bumper support, but now that we've got a front end and the car looks a lot more presentable, we've got one last problem to fix before we go driving, and that is to address my horrible handbrake. Luckily, it's an easy fix. Basically, there are 2 common style of handbrakes. One is where you pull up on the lever and it squeezes the caliper onto the rotor, which then obviously stops the rear wheels. And the second most common version is this drum style, where when you pull the cable, it spreads these 2 shoes out, contacting the inside of the rotor, then stopping the wheels. And in my case, the rear shoe is incredibly worn, almost down to bare metal. But luckily, Toyota being Toyota, they still make a bunch of OE parts for these old cars. So I've got a brand new set of OE shoes to throw on. Then all I have to do is adjust the cable up and I should have a nice tight handbrake again. You don't want to be too reliant on the handbrake when you're drifting, but it is definitely a good tool to have. To be honest, these are a pain in the ass to put together with all these little springs and so I didn't film putting it together, but new shoes are on. Rough up the contact surface where the shoes meet the rotor, throw the rotor on, do the other side, and then we can drive. All right, we're finally getting some laps, and silly me left all my GoPro attachments for my helmet at the accommodation, so I'm just gonna get Taylor to film some phone clips and I'll throw those in here. Sorry about the no GoPro. For our first laps, we headed down to Nishi Short. This is a track that's not usually open all the time pre-Matsuri weekend, so we took advantage of that to go get rid of the first lap jitters and get in some tandem practice, as that's something I really want to improve on. Finished up for the day, popped one of my tires on the rear. So good to finally get some good laps in. I'm just slowly limping the car back to PV so I can go fit up a tire, and then we're calling it for the day. Hope you like the look of the new front end on the Chaser. Unfortunately, the whole body kit didn't show up, but hopefully shows up early next week. So as you can see, I've gone with something a little bit different for the spray job. I've gone with a black to white fade, the back quarter of the car being black and the front 3/4 of the car being white. I'm not sold on it. I don't hate it, but I don't love it kind of thing. Let me know what you think in the comments, whether you fuck with the fade or not. Kind of did it as a trial for something that's possibly happening in the future, and the car definitely looks goofy without side skirts and just a big front bar. But hopefully my kit rocks up pretty soon and I can get it looking a lot better. I just got over the car being like 4 different colors and wanted a semi-uniform looking car and landed on this because it was a cheap option. Obviously, it's not the best spray job. It was a trackside spray job with rattle cans, but it gets it looking somewhat uniform rather than being a multicolored chaser. So I'm going to run it for now, and who knows, maybe once I get the kit on, I might end up liking it more. But with that all said and done, we're down at Nishi, so let's go turn some laps. I'm going to do a little voiceover here of the tandem footage. Watching it back, it's actually a little bit embarrassing when I'm in the chase position how much I get gapped over the hill, and basically for the first half of the track at Nishi, I only really gained proximity by the second half of the track, and especially on the last corner. And I'm going to put this down to 2 things. One being that there is actually a lot of grip left to find in the car. I run the rear of my car quite low, especially for an Ebisu car, and this causes the rear wheels to camber in, meaning I don't really get the proper use of the full tread of the tyre, and I have to compensate by running really low tyre pressure, which is sort of counterintuitive in its own way. Now I could fix this issue by raising it, but that also comes with drawbacks. I would lose a little bit of toe in, which would also lose forward drive, and I lose the good look of my rear fitment. Arguably half the fun is having a sweet fitment and a good looking car, but at the same time you also want to go fast. It's chasing that sweet balance of form and function, not one or the other. So simply put, I think it's time for an adjustable rear end so I can keep my nice fitment but also be fast. And the second thing being driver mod. After reviewing some in-car footage from other YouTubers with JZXs, not only do they start a lot closer to the lead car, but they seem to be leaving it in second and doing a much smaller flick to initiate or a handbrake dive in on the lead car down the hill and then maintaining proximity throughout the lap. Whereas essentially what I seem to be doing is exactly what I do in the lead. I'm essentially doing my lead line behind the lead car, rather than starting super close and diving in on the car straight away, which just leaves me to get gapped in the first half of the track and only catch up by the second half. A little annoying, but this is exactly why I film myself, so I can review, critique, and get better while hopefully providing some entertaining and informative content. Thank you so much for listening to me critique my driving. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you. Hell yeah. Nice laps, dude. That was f***ing awesome. Alright, we had some sweet laps with the boys Jesse and Rudnick down at Nishi, but they want to finish off the day up at North Course, so we're going to head up there and finish off the day. Let's get it. After the first few laps at North, I noticed the car started to feel a little low on power in third, as it wasn't really floating over the hill and back towards the wall with ease like it normally would. But I don't like being someone who just blames the car before looking at themselves, so I told myself I was just being a wuss, I need to go faster, drive harder, and just clutch it towards the wall. But no matter what I did, I couldn't quite get it feeling right. Sound airy, eh? Yeah. Sounds almost like I have a boost leak. I wonder where my boost reference is off, if it's off manifold or if it's off turbo. If it's straight off the turbo, I could be getting a false reading. Because it says I'm still running just under a bar of boost, which is where these are happy at. Yeah, it's like 0.7, 0.8 bar, which is pretty normal. It does sound super airy though. Let's have a look. I was just thinking to myself on those last couple of laps, I've really got to work for that entry over the hill. Normally this thing just sails. I've just come in and found a big boost leak. It's really hard to see on camera. There's a little tear in that coupler because it's been rubbing on the lower radiator support. So time to swap that out. Not gonna lie, this footage is much further along in the week than the footage you just watched. However, I thought it would be best to include it anyway and deliver on my promise of showing you guys the complete new look of the Chaser rather than making you wait for another video. With that all said and done, I hope you guys like the new look, and if you want to see me go shopping for some sweet wheels at Up Garage, make sure you stay to the end of the video. It is not the most glamorous mounting method. I am just self-tappering it on the inside here, and then one at the very front of the guard. Very lacking on tools and supplies to trim this and get it to fit properly and fit it up properly, but after all, it is an Ebisu car and there is a high chance that these are going to get dragged across the floor and or I'm going to get crashed into. So, not the biggest deal in the world. good's the color match, eh? Oh, you can't even, oh, you can tell on camera. You can tell. All right, we got the skirts mounted up, and I do have a rear bar for it over there, but I don't think I want to f around with fitting it up, just because last trip I punted in this corner, and the top hole to line up the bar is very rough, and you can kind of get away with just running front bar and skirts and it not looking too goofy without a rear bar. And I mean, it looks a million times better anyway. That marks the end of the day. As you saw, got a little tear in my coupler. It was just rubbing on the lower rad support from the crash. All that got all mangled up, and I thought I had it pulled away from it, but apparently not. Not the end of the world though, just need a new coupler and we will be good. Thought it was a bit weird. It never usually struggles in third, just full throttle over the North Hill, but it was really making me work for it. And yeah, big boost leak, obviously. We'll do that. But it's 4:10 now, so we're calling it for the day. Just gonna go park up and hopefully grab a coupler tonight from Up Garage, or try and source one from a friend or Power Vehicles or something like that. We'll be doing a little bit of antics maybe after the track, so I'm not sure what's gonna be filmed, but if I do film stuff, it will be after this clip. If not, thank you so much for watching. I hope you like the new look of the JZX. I'm pretty stoked on it, but at the same time, I don't love it. It's just nice to have a semi-uniform looking car rather than like a 4 or 5 multicolour car that was doing my head in. So even though it's only rattle can, general consensus around, I don't know if people are just being polite, but people seem to like it. So that's a pretty good thing. Definitely not its final form, but we'll definitely do for this trip. Check this out, this is a wild spec. 10J neg 25, 11.5J neg 40. That is wild, and for roughly like 2,700, 2,900 Oz, not a chance that's fitting the Chaser. Some of the coolest wheels, LMGT4s, very cool wheel, but they are a very average size, 7.5 plus 40, and they're still 2.5 grand Oz. That's wild. Old logo Nismo, 330mm. That is a very expensive steering wheel, like 1.7K Oz. Oi, check out the chromies though. Damn.
Banana bread at work today, dude?
Hell yeah.
The Crimson Chill!